Oh, it's a big one in Baton Rouge. I don't know if the Mississippi State fan base is overconfident, but Vegas has MSU as a 2-point favorite. Not sure I agree with that line, but here we go. Baton Rouge, 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon night. And should be a close game, MSU at LSU, but MSU has a chance to win. They don't always have a chance to win when they go on the road and play them Tigers. Out of bounds, ESPN 1059 The Zone. Brought to you by Superior Foundation for all your foundation repairs. Superior.ms. Show is also brought to you by Havana Smoke Shop. Premium cigars, 2 locations in the Metro Havana Smoke Shop. We welcome in Steve Robertson. GenesPage.com, 247 Sports. And Steve, so do you agree with the line? Do you agree that your Bulldogs should be a 2-point favorite?
Well, here's what I'll say about that, Bo. I'm not in the business of making money in the gambling world, so I've learned the hard way never to bet on Mississippi State. But here's the deal: Mississippi State's taken some really good teams to LSU in the past and come home with a loss. I think this team might be a little different, and I think LSU getting them early is probably advantageous for Mississippi State. I agree with you. I think it'll be a very, very close game. But I think it's going to boil down to how can State handle the intensity of that crowd in the fourth quarter. We've had these periods of malaise in the late third quarter. It's allowed teams to kind of crawl back into it. If that happens at Baton Rouge, it's going to be another year where you take a good team down there and come home with a loss. So I think it boils down to State's poise and maturity. But, yeah, I think State's got a chance to win this ballgame.
Jaden Crumedy, is he for sure out for MSU this week?
Yeah, I'm not expecting him back this week. And again, the timeline for that is still kind of undetermined and not public. But, no, I don't expect him back. I think he and John Lewis both are still probably unavailable. But everybody else expected to be back, and did some checking on some things yesterday, and it appears that State came out of that game healthy against Arizona. Woody Marks went down with an ankle injury, looked kind of bad at the time. Then 5 minutes later, he's walking up down the sidelines and returns to the game. So we don't expect to have anybody unavailable that was available last week.
What did you make of the offensive line? I know at times they gave Will all day, and at times it was a little bit of a struggle. When you see that offensive line against the LSU guys, and I know LSU lost a guy against Florida State, but what do you see in that matchup in the trenches?
I think that's where the game will be decided, to be quite honest with you. And I think the offensive line has played really well, and that's been kind of a pleasant surprise. We were worried about those tackle spots all fall, and Dollar Bill Johnson's hanging in there doing a good job. And Cam Jones had a hold call, and then Dollar Bill had one. But by and large, they played pretty well. It'll be the biggest challenge to date, because I think you could make a case that LSU is DLU, not just DBU. I mean, those guys always have some guys, and Ojulari is back, and so it's going to be a real test. But I think how State handles that LSU pass rush will ultimately decide the football game.
You mentioned Marks, so that thing may just be with this high ankle sprain may be there throughout the year. Is that what you're thinking?
I don't think it's going to be that significant. I mean, initially it looked bad, but he went right back in and was cutting on it, planting on it. So I don't think it'll be something that lingers, that limits his availability or his ability to make plays. I mean, I think the bottom line is it's college football, and everybody gets a little banged up. But no, I don't think it's something that'll hamper him from making a very solid contribution this week.
You mentioned Caleb ducking several times in August. So many times throughout the year, Steve, as you know, there's been a wide receiver mentioned at Mississippi State, but nothing comes to fruition. He has come – now, this is a different deal because this is actually an offense that they rep the passing game out. You got to be pretty impressed with what you're seeing from Caleb ducking the first 2 games. Is it 3 TDs, 2 TDs? And
yeah,
3. And he other than the drop on, through the hands on Saturday night, this kid's played really well. How would you assess his play to date?
Well, I would say what he's doing on the field kind of matches what we saw in camp. And you make a good point. You remember a couple of years ago, Javonte Payton was the star of fall camp, and it never translated to the field. Last year it was Mekhi Polk in camp. We're like, hey, this guy's a difference maker, and he certainly did. He had a record-breaking season. Caleb Ducking played behind Polk last year, so he had a chance to kind of learn and watch and really kind of learn how to play college football. This is a guy from Rolling Fork, Mississippi at South Delta High School, and played at Holmes Community College where they were a run-first scheme. So, give Joe Moorhead a little credit. I mean, Joe offered him a scholarship. He had one collegiate catch under his belt, and now he is an absolute red zone weapon. If he doesn't get the ball, he's usually getting a penalty flag because he does such a good job getting a release and getting off the line and out into the pass pattern. And with his length and athleticism and ability to high point football, you get in a one-on-one matchup, that's going to favor Mississippi State every single time. And I think we're beginning to see that. And I think that's the thing that's so rewarding is you've got a guy that's been developed and is now playing well above his maybe even the potential Joe Moorhead saw in that guy. But he is a real weapon, and I think that's a guy that now defensive coordinators around this conference are thinking, okay, what do we do? How do we shade coverage to that side of the field, which opens up opportunities for other people?
Blake just said you cannot make him give Joe Moorhead credit on anything. I just wanted to let you know.
Well, I know Blake, and God bless him. But I think that's the thing with Joe is I think you see a guy that's long and lean and athletic. It's kind of we always talk about diamonds in the rough, and this is where I think Mississippi State has to have a high batting average. When you have guys like that, you take a chance. You got to hope you hit on them, and they have here. And matter of fact, I traded some messages with Joe back during fall camp just to kind of let him know how Ducking was doing, and he kind of explained. He goes, "This is what we saw in him, and we hoped it would develop." He goes, "I'm just so incredibly happy for the kid."
Sure,
and that's the thing.
Sure.
I think when you look at Mississippi State now, it's like all of a sudden you've got this guy out here that he's just making defensive backs furious. I mean, you saw that. He made the big touchdown against Arizona, and then the kid he beats wants to get out there and fight. I mean, there's only so much you can do. I mean, it's not magic, it's math. When you've got a guy that long with that big catch radius and you've got a quarterback that's got elite ball placement, it's indefensible. If you throw it up there to the back pylon, he's going to go get the football.
Yeah.
And there's not much you can do.
Look, and Will's playing great. Steve Robertson on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Look, Steve, I've got Moorhead's cell number. I won't even give it to Blake. Because I don't ever know what's going to happen on a Saturday night after Blake's had a beer and gets all ticked off. Real quick, we've only got a minute. We'll bring you, but this is a short segment. We'll bring you back on later in the week. Give me one guy on defense that's got to play big against LSU for Mississippi State to have a good chance to win.
I think it's Camryon Richardson. I think you feel like Emmanuel Forbes has got his side of the field done, and I think DeCamp's played really well. Going to be really, really tested this week with those LSU wide receivers, and when you look at that offense, you got to get guys on the ground. But if you allow plays to extend, it's going to put a lot more stress on your secondary, and we saw some of that last week against Arizona. But I think DeCamp's got to really hold his own and win some one-on-one matchups because you're going to see a lot of them, and you can't let guys get behind you at Tiger Stadium. And listen, Bo, you've been there. When that crowd gets rocking, you feel like the ground is going to open up and swallow you whole. And I think DeCamp can make some plays to neutralize some of that.
And they're going to have to keep an eye on Jason Taylor, son. I see it. I can just see a drag route late third quarter, wide open. All of a sudden, he catches it and runs it for 40 yards. Zach Arnett's going to have his hands full. I don't know who's going to be the guy to shadow him, but that kid's 6'4", 6'5", and hell of a player. But State's got an awesome opportunity to win a big game. Steve, we'll do it again later in the week. Thank you, man. Gene's Page, 247 Sports, the Boneyard Podcast. Steve Robertson on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Brought to you by MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Luganville coming up next.